This is section B of our last unit from health psychology. The unit is health promotion. The name of the section over here is health promotion in schools, work sites, and communities. We'd start off with how is it or why is it that school is considered as an option where health can be promoted. The Let's start off with a few ideas that are from us, and then we move on towards the ideas that we have down over here listed. Now, we spoke about there being, when you talk about health related health promotion, we could also link it with health and safety and talk about how at schools we give training to the seniors, students only, when it comes to first aid. Number two, health can be promoted with uh, or you could talk about drives, what do you call it, blood donation drives, or we could also bring in health promotion when it comes to uh, there being health
There are also the
promotion
daily
campaigns. The
checkups of the daily checkups we had in schools.
Yeah, at schools they're not daily checkups these days.
Yes, sir, वो जो nails and hair वगैरह के होते थे.
Yeah, that has to do with hygiene, that again can be linked to health, and nail being properly cut. And likewise, we could talk about how at schools these days, at colleges these days, your temperature is checked, right? School, if you talk about the Western world, if you talk about the more developed countries over here, almost everyone goes to the school. And from a very young, tender age, you can develop habits that are in the longer run beneficial for the individual, the student, and the society as a whole as well, because healthier children means healthier society. Likewise, we could remember I think it was the Safeguard or the Lifebuoy advertisement, where there was this young boy known as Bablu, whose sabun they said was slow, and about hand washing it promotes health, right? And these days it's pretty essential. School children are young, and we can link it up with the core study that we studied under cognitive psychology, Laney et al., by developing habits or making individuals believe that they liked a particular food when they were young. This again helps. Or there could be so many activities. There are so many activities that are done at school, for instance, for younger kids. If we talk about toddlers, or if you talk about school students from the primary, they are taught, what do you call it, they taught there are certain activities. I mean, there are activities that I know of. For instance, junk is only allowed on Fridays. For instance, there's a school in Karachi that I believe makes kids bring dairy products on Mondays, on Tuesdays. That's a particular day of the week, through which all of these activities, you're actually promoting health. There are activities. Now, these are the ones that I know of that do happen. They'd ask the kids to bring fresh fruits, and that they'd make shakes. They teach them how to make shakes. And of course, shakes without artificial sugar are healthy. Though health promotion at school plays a very important role, and when we speak about health being promoted at school, it could have a long lasting impact, right? Moving on, schools have a good opportunity to promote healthy living to students. Lessons where students are taught about the benefits of healthy living can be part of the curriculum. That again can be part of the curriculum. And if you're giving students credits on that, that's a plus point. Health promotion activities in school look at preventing poor health habits from developing. The advantages for this could be: number one, most children do go to school, therefore, virtually all the population can be reached at least in the early years. Number two, and again, this example works more when it comes to developed countries or developed nations, right? Let's just say, for example, you could refer to the UK over here. Number two, the school population is young, and when young people are taught good behaviors early, their behavior can become habitual, which ultimately is going to benefit them and the society as a whole. Number three, schools also have the advantage of including health promotion activities in their curriculum, right? Just include it in the curriculum and it would make it even easier. Though when we talk about promoting healthy eating for children, some patterns of food intake are healthier than others. For instance, saturated fat, sugars, and salt combined with intake of fruits, vegetables, and cereal foods lead to adverse health consequences, obesity, and associated social rejection. Many children's intervention have focused on changes in nutrient intake, for example, changes in fat intake. A focus on food intake, food patterns, experience of food, and an enjoyment of eating is more likely to develop long lasting positive attitudes towards healthy eating. This was another study that, again, is not a part of a syllabus but can be used in paper 4, section C, right, where we get a 12-mark question where they ask us to write down, give examples of studies that we have done, right? Healthy eating hota kya hai? Healthy eating has been defined as the consumption of a wide variety of fresh fruit, vegetables, legumes, and whole grain cereal foods, as well as dairy and animal foods, right? So health promotion at schools can play a very important role, can have a very important contribution towards a healthier society. To take this a step further, there's a study that was conducted by Tapper et al. In the year 2003, and this happens to be a part of a syllabus. To remind you all, whatever's there that is a part of a syllabus can be directly questioned on, right? Now, so this study by Tapper et al. In 2003, in the United Kingdom, the Food Dudes trial provided videotaped fruit and vegetable promotion strategies for parents of preschools at home, as well as program for primary school children. Now, like I said a minute back, remind yourselves of the advertisement that we used to get about on Commander Safeguard, right? So the Food Dudes program, we're talking about the Food Dudes program being used over here. Okay? So in the United Kingdom, number one, we need to question ourselves. The study was conducted in the UK. How likely is it that the findings from this study would be applicable elsewhere in countries like ours, maybe, right? So the Food Dude trials provided videotaped fruit and vegetable promotion strategies. Now, what was this entire thing about? This was about videotaped fruit and vegetable promotion strategies. ठीक है जी? They were for parents of preschoolers at home, as well as the programs for primary school children. So we catering this lot and we catering this lot, right? So within a few sessions, the use of these tapes successfully induced substantial, long-lasting increases in the intake of fruit and vegetables. Now, we talking about the usefulness of this. If we get a question where if we have to evaluate it, of course, usefulness could be brought in. Remember, when we use the term evaluation, evaluation isn't necessarily for criticism, right? You could write down of the good things as well. Though within a few weeks, it was seen that the use of these tapes successfully induced substantial, long lasting increases in the intake of fruits and vegetables. That's again a good thing which can work in our favor, in the favor of this particular study. Tapper's work was based on the following different strategies used with young children to change their eating behavior. Number one, we're talking about the strategies over here. And if we talk about these different strategies, number one, we'd speak about taste exposure. You've seen how young kids, they're reluctant towards trying out something new, right? हमारे बच्चों का भरोसा टूटा हुआ होता है. And even if you talk about I've tried this so many times. Even if there's a little infant, your nephews, your nieces, younger children that you come across, even if you want to make them taste ice cream, of course, when the parents are not watching, that's supposed to be a joke. And you just have to make a point that you somehow touch that, let's say, ice cream on the child's lips, right? A young child. I have a young nephew who's not even a year old, and initially the child would keep on moving their head because they'd show resistance towards trying something new. But when you make them taste it, you're actually exposing them towards that taste. जब तक बच्चे को आप एक नए टेस्ट एक्सपोज नहीं करोगे, तब तक बच्चा कैसे हैबिट डेवलप करेगा towards it? Of course, this example doesn't really work out with ice creams, but I was just giving an example about something that we do come across something that does happen. We see it happening all the time, right? So number one, it could be done through taste exposure. Number two, through modeling. And what sort of modeling are we talking about? We're actually referring to the modeling that we studied when we were doing AS psychology, the study by Bandura, Ross, and Ross, right? You do it in front of a child. You know what? If you're doing something in front of the child probably would want to imitate it. The child probably would want to try it out in front of you, right? The child, like I said, I think if you remember the study that was conducted by Bandura, Ross, and Ross, you exactly know what I'm talking about. It's more effective. I could it if I ask, if a child sees me having ice cream and I have a cucumber slice from there to share with a child, that the child would probably not really like the idea. But if I'm having a cucumber myself, and while having a cucumber myself, if I I'm doing it in front of the child, there's a possibility that the child would want to give it a try on his or her own, right? So,
Popeye the Sailor Man की तरह.
किसकी तरह?
Popeye the Sailor Man.
Popeye the Sailor Man, yeah. So, yeah, I know what's Popeye the Sailor Man. It's a cartoon from our times, but the only thing I remember about him is he liked spinach. तो बाकी मुझे कुछ याद नहीं है तो. Yeah, number one,
वो
taste.
देख के मैंने खाना शुरू किया है.
अच्छा, या देख के बच्चों ने स्पेनिश खाना शुरू किया था. दैट नाउ आई एग्जैक्टली गेट व्हाट यू टॉकिंग अबाउट. दैट्स सच एन अमेजिंग एग्जांपल या. राइट, तो टेस्ट एक्सपोजर. नंबर टू, मॉडलिंग. नंबर थ्री, रिवॉर्ड. Positive reinforcement. This comes under the heading of operant conditioning. But you know what? A mess up that us adults do is, if you want to make a child eat something healthy, we'd be like, hey, come on, finish your food. Do you know what? In the fridge, there's this ice cream waiting for you, or there's this chocolate waiting for you, there's Toblerone waiting for you. That's not really the right thing to do. You're somewhat making the child believe कि okay, जो आप अभी खा रहे हो वो इतनी अच्छी चीज़ नहीं है, लेकिन अगर आप इसको खाओगे तो in compensation you'd get something good. That's not how it works. You should somehow work towards making the child develop interest, or you should somehow work towards making the child want to try out that food on his or her own, instead of you using that as a compensation of something. If you're using it as a compensation, अगर आप बच्चे को कहते हो कि आप अपना हेल्दी खाना खत्म करो, आपको आइसक्रीम मिलेगी, तो इन अदर वर्ड्स आप बच्चे को ये फील करा रहे हो कि यार देखो, खाना तो अच्छी चीज़ नहीं है, लेकिन मेरे भाई कर लो, सह लो, अभी सह लो, आपके लिए अच्छी चीज़ वहाँ पे पड़ी है. In the longer run, it doesn't really work like this. So we're talking about the different strategies that are used over here, and while discussing these different strategies, number one, taste exposure. Number two, modeling. Number three, rewards, right? Taste exposure, modeling, and rewards. And I'm assuming everyone sitting over here does get what we're stepping into, right? So taste exposure increases the exposure to a new food group over a period of weeks. Exposing to a new food group with over a period of weeks. The more you taste a novel food, the more you learn to like it. The more chances you get to taste something new, the more chances there are that you'd end up liking it. Number two, modeling. Research shows that certain factors make modeling, imitation, and observation learning more effective. Bandura, right? So, oh, it's written there. A child is more likely to imitate another person if that person is liked by the child. So, if the father, if the mother, if an older sibling, they're sitting in front of the child and consuming something healthy, there's a possibility that the child, probably out of curiosity, would want to go and give it a try, or would show more of acceptance towards that newer food, right? So children are more likely to imitate another person. Number three, rewards. Positive reinforcement is the word over here for eating the new food. Rewards should imply the importance of the healthy eating behavior rather than become a compensation for eating something unpleasant. Remember, do not do that. You're not supposed to make a child feel like, okay, this is bad, and इस बैड को खाने के बाद आपको कोई अच्छी चीज़ मिलेगी. बच्चे को आपको ये फील ही नहीं कराना कि वो चीज़ बुरी है, क्योंकि वो चीज़ बुरी नहीं है. ये हमें बच्चों को ऐसे बताना है. Do we get this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Moving on, Tapper all completed the development and evaluation of a whole school food routes program. Now, what they did was they completed the development and evaluation. Now, plan it up, take care of its implementation, and then scrutinize and see if it actually did work the way you wanted it to work, right? For use across primary school range, the program is designed to be implemented entirely by school staff and contains the following elements. Now, we're talking about making the school staff do something extra, And yes, that would bring in practical constraints, practical limitations, right? You'd have to have the right amount of time, you'd have to have resources in terms of money, in terms of human resources, right? So all of that has to be kept in mind. So the program is designed to be implemented entirely by school staff and contain the following elements. Number one, the Food Dude video containing 6 short adventure episodes. Remember Commander Safeguard. I mean, not exactly that, but just to give you a hint, right? A Food Dude's video containing 6 short adventure episodes. Number two, a set of Food Dudes rewards. Number three, a set of letters from the Food Dudes that provide praise and encouragement and remind children of the reward contingencies. Now, this and this, don't you think work in favor of operant conditioning?
Yes, sir.
Right? So, a food dude's home pack to encourage children to eat fruit and vegetables in the home context as well as at school. You know what? Children do go to school. Like I said, for developed countries, almost everyone goes to school. But then again, there's a limited amount of time that they spend at school. There's more time they spend at home. And आप घर से बच्चा आता है, आप उसको हेल्दी चीज़ें हेल्दी हेल्दी खाना खिला के घर भेजें, घर वापस जाके वो सारा जंक खाना शुरू कर दे, तो it doesn't really serve the purpose. So the idea is to make a child develop a habit in favor of healthy eating behavior, right? So a food dude's home pack to encourage children to eat fruits and vegetables in the home context as well as the school. A staff manual, the staff needs to be trained about this as well. There has to be unanimous agreement over what has to be done, what doesn't have to be done. There have to be proper SOPs that have to be followed, right? So, a staff manual and staff briefing video to help teachers implement the program correctly, right? You wouldn't want the teachers or the staff that is responsible, school staff that is responsible to carry out this entire thing to make a boo boo over there, right? The last one, a set of educational support material to help teachers meet curriculum targets using the four tools themes. Now, that's another really good thing. You know what? You while studying a particular subject, if a young child is to be taught about fruits, you ask them to bring those foods, of course, through parents. They bring the food, you make them try it at school. You probably make a shake out of it, because without artificial ingredients there, let's keep it healthy here, let's just say strawberry and milk added together, and there you go, you have a shake ready for you, right? So a set of education support material to help teachers meet the curriculum targets, because remember, we're talking about dealing with all of this at school, and when we're talking about dealing with all of this at school, the school curriculum needs to be met as well. ऐसा नहीं है कि आप बच्चों को हेल्दी ईटिंग की तरफ लेके चले जाएं, लेकिन हेल्दी ईटिंग के साथ एक तरफ उनको आप लेके जा रहे हो, दूसरी तरफ से आपके जो एजुकेशन रिलेटेड टारगेट्स है वो मीट नहीं हो पा रहे, तो दैट हैज़ टू बी टेकन केयर ऑफ एज वेल. Now, I want everyone to read through the first part of this thoroughly and make notes, and this the content that is being written and read over here would help you make quick notes on this. Let's do that and then we'd move on towards this part. Now, we had spoken about these 6 points over here. Let's talk about the intervention phase. How is it that there were interventions made? And to keep in mind, interventions are important, but then there has to be regularity. ये तो नहीं है ना कि आप रोज की बेसिस पे, डेली बेसिस पे तो बच्चों को नहीं सिखाओगे कि ऐसा 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 ऐसा. Then there would be a maintenance phase. Now, how is it that the maintenance phase would be different from the intervention phase? Over here, there would be the rewards that were initially to be given to children. You cannot just continue giving those rewards forever, because the rewards were initially given to as an appeal factor, as an incentive to the child, with the basic idea कि बच्चे के अंदर हैबिट डेवलप हो उससे रिलेटेड, ठीक है? तो अब the intervention phase of the program lasted for a period of 16 days, during which children watched the Food Dudes video episodes and listened to the teachers read out the Food Dudes letter to them. Children also receive rewards. Just imagine you walk up to your school and children go say, "Hey, today we have a new Food Dudes letter over here. Let's read it out." And we're talking about young kids over here, and they get also excited. You've seen how our children, if you have younger siblings, cousins at home, like I have my kids, I have my nephews and nieces, how they get excited when they talk about these characters, cartoon characters, right? So imagine your teacher talking, having imagine your teacher have a letter in front of her, and she'll be like, "Hey, this is a letter we received from the Food Dudes program," and da 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 da. All of that is just done to bring in interest, right? To make the children develop interest. Okay? So children also receive rewards when they eat the fruit and vegetable that are presented to them. They receive a food dude sticker for tasting a food, or a sticker and a small prize for eating a whole portion. That works, I'm sure, worked out real well. You you've seen how kids, you just tell them once they finish their food, without YouTube, you'd give them a sticker. I mean, a star sticker, right? That just motivates kids, right? Or a small prize for eating a whole portion of food. The intervention phase is followed by the maintenance phase, जहाँ पे आपके पास irregularities आना शुरू हो जाएंगी, in terms of you giving them rewards, like I said, because you cannot continue to do that forever. So the intervention phase is followed by a maintenance phase, during which there are no videos and the letters and rewards become more intermittent, to see if there's a long lasting impact of the Food Tools program. So a variety of schools trial the whole school dude no food dude program, and all reported significant increases in participants' consumption of fruit and vegetables at break times. That's a really good thing. That means this entire program, the way it was designed and carried out, ended up being pretty successful. However, nonetheless, remember, there are always limitations to be kept in mind. The practicality, the constraints in terms of resources, like we discussed a couple of minutes back. So if we have to evaluate this, both the teachers and parents evaluate the program positively. Now this is application of psychology to everyday life. The children had engaged with the program with, they were enthusiastic about the curriculum work using the food roots theme, and had better attendance, and previously low achieving children were more confident. After 4 months, remember, this entire program was collaborated with their curriculum. We have spoken about this, right?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
after 4 months, because now when you talk about, as it's written over here, we're trying to figure out the long lasting impact, or the effect this could have on a long term basis, right? After 4 months, the children were still eating significantly more fruit and vegetables than they had been before the program began. So I think in this case, it would have been a win-win situation for all, right? So the researchers gave three reasons as to why the program was so effective. Number one, children discovered for themselves the intrinsic rewards of eating fruit and vegetables, and this discovery would probably have been possible through the exposure that they had to food, or we could say the modeling or the rewards were there too. Number two, the program changed the culture of the school. Now, changing the culture of the school, this is something I should have mentioned earlier, which I didn't. There are schools that I know of today, their canteens do not have soft drinks to offer. There are just juices. I know there are artificial juices, there aren't as good as a fresh fruit juice. Nonetheless, they're still better than fizzy drinks, right? So the program changed this culture of school to one where it supports the eating of fruit and vegetables as being the norm, right? Number three, it changed the self-concept of children. They could label themselves as fruit and vegetable eaters. I don't know if you've ever noticed this. I have quite a lot of time. Young kids, they hold pride in this. Like, and they want support from the parents or the adults around them as well. They'll be like, hey baba, hey baba, do you know, I mean, if they have a cousin in front of them, they'll be like, hey baba, tell him or her I eat cucumbers, I eat carrots, or I eat vegetables, da 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 da. Do we get this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
The strength over
Yes,
here
sir.
would be good application because the program was successful, so other schools may want to introduce it. The weakness, constraints, practical constraints, time constraints, money, adequate staff training, all of that, right? So following the program is time consuming. The commitment needed to make it work cannot be guaranteed in a school environment due to other school pressures as well. finishing off the curriculum, limitations from here, there, everywhere. I hope everyone did understand the study that was conducted by Taparayol in the year 2003. This we studying under section B from the last unit from health psychology, that is health promotion. We were talking about how schools could be used as a platform through which health could be promoted.